What if I told you that a single day could bring 1,000-year history to an end? There was a city that for 1,000 years had been the center of the world, an impregnable fortress in the heart of a great empire, yet its fate was decided by one man and one new technology. This is the story of how walls that had stood for a millennium collapsed under the onslaught of a new era, taking with them not only a city, but an entire world. Watch this video to the end, and you will learn what fatal accident, rather than cannons alone, predetermined the outcome of the greatest siege in history. I will reveal a secret that changes everything. This battle was not merely a clash of armies, but a duel between two individuals who embodied their worlds. On one side stood Constantine Palaiologos, the last emperor of Byzantium. He was not a powerful ruler, but rather the guardian of a fading legacy. His empire was only a shadow of its former greatness, shrunk to the size of a single city and a few islands. He had inherited not power, but a duty to defend what had already been almost lost. He was surrounded by quarrels, poverty, and a sense of inevitable doom. Constantine was a man of tragic destiny, taking the crown at a moment when everyone else refused it. He was a realist and understood perfectly well that he did not have the strength to win. Yet he was also a man of honor who could not abandon his people and his city. He desperately sought help from the West, trying to unite the Catholic and Orthodox churches, but this only caused a split within Constantinople itself. His rule was not governance, but a daily preparation for the final battle. He was an emperor without an empire, doomed to be the last of his line. On the other side stood Sultan Mehmed II, who entered history as the conqueror. He was only 21 years old, but he possessed the mind of a seasoned strategist and an indomitable will. Unlike Constantine, Mehmed was the ruler of a young and rising state, full of energy and ambition. For him, Constantinople was not just a city, but an obsession, the dream of his father and grandfather. He believed that taking this city was his destiny, granted from above. Mehmed was a man of a new era, a man of the Renaissance. Despite ruling the Ottoman Empire, he studied ancient Greek and Roman strategists, spoke several languages, and took a keen interest in new technologies. Centuries-old walls and the city's fame did not frighten him. He saw in them a challenge to be overcome with science, engineering, and unbending will. He was ready to stake everything to achieve his goal. These two men were mirror reflections of their ages. Constantine represented the departing Middle Ages, full of traditions and symbols, yet exhausted. Mehmed embodied the modern age, pragmatic, ruthless, but filled with faith in human reason and power. One defended the past, the other sought to build the future. Their confrontation was not merely a war over territory. Their personal drama unfolded against the backdrop of a great technological shift. Constantine relied on stone walls built centuries earlier and on faith. Mehmed bet on what would change warfare forever: gunpowder and artillery. He gathered the best engineers of his time to create weapons capable of destroying what had been considered indestructible. It was a clash between faith in God and faith in technology. The city itself was the main prize, but also a symbol. For Constantine, it was the last bastion of Roman civilization and the center of orthodoxy. For Mehmed, it was the red apple, a symbol of world dominion, the key to Europe and the Black Sea. By taking it, he would become not merely a sultan, but the heir to the Roman Caesars, the ruler of the world. In the end, this duel of character became the leitmotif of the entire siege. The perseverance and nobility of one collided with the genius and obsession of the other. It's very interesting to hear your perspective. What do you think? Could Constantine's personal courage have changed the outcome if he had had more resources? Write about it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to dive deeper into the great battles of the past. Are you ready to learn why this city was considered eternal? Constantinople was not merely a capital, it was a marvel of engineering, the most perfect fortress of its time. Its location was chosen brilliantly, on a triangular peninsula washed by the sea on two sides. To the south it was protected by the Sea of Marmara, and to the north by the Golden Horn, whose entrance was blocked by a massive chain. The only land approach from the west was closed off by the legendary Theodosian walls. These very walls were the city's pride and protection for 1,000 years. They were not one, but 3 lines of defense stretching for 6 kilometers. It was the most complex and powerful fortification system ever created in the pre-gunpowder era. No army could take them by storm for centuries. They withstood dozens of sieges and became a symbol of Byzantium's unbreakability. The first line of defense was a deep, wide moat that could be filled with water. For attackers, it became a serious obstacle, slowing them under the defenders' fire. Anyone who tried to cross it found themselves in the open. This moat was the first filter, weeding out the hesitant and the ill-prepared. Beyond the moat stood the first low wall known as the Paratikon. It was equipped with merlons and loopholes, serving as a forward line for archers and throwers. Its main task was to cover the defenders positioned in the space between it and the next wall. This space, called the peribolos, was a true trap for those who broke through. Next rose the outer wall, about 8 to 9 meters high. It was reinforced with numerous towers placed at distances that allowed them to support each other with crossfire. The towers served not only as firing points, but also as fortified strongholds. Even if the enemy captured a section of wall, the towers would remain centers of resistance. But the crowning achievement was the inner, or Great, Wall. It reached 12 meters in height and was up to 5 meters thick at the base. About 100 massive towers rose upon it, reaching 20 meters high. These towers were true forts, capable of housing a garrison and siege engines. They dominated the entire system in the battlefield beyond. This multi-layered system was designed for active defense. The distances between the walls were precisely calculated. Attackers who broke through the outer wall found themselves in a confined space under crossfire from the towers of the Great Wall. They had no room to maneuver and became easy targets. The sea walls protecting the city from the Sea of Marmara and the Golden Horn were not as strong as the land walls. They were lower and had only a single tier. However, the Byzantines relied on their fleet and, more importantly, on that very chain. This enormous iron chain, stretched across the entrance to the Golden Horn, made the city's inner harbor absolutely invulnerable to an enemy fleet. The city seemed invincible, protected by stone and water. But what if I told you that one man created a technology capable of turning this millennial defense into dust? In the next chapter, we will meet the engineer who built a doomsday weapon. What I'm about to show you would be banned in our time. The key to the siege was not an army, but one man and his creation. That man was a Hungarian engineer named Orban. He was a master founder, one of the few in Europe who understood the destructive potential of gunpowder. Orban was essentially a mercenary, ready to sell his unique skills to whoever paid more. At first, he offered his services to the Byzantine Emperor Constantine. Constantine the XIII understood perfectly well the value of such an offer. He knew that the old walls would not withstand the onslaught of new artillery, and he himself needed cannons for defense. But the Byzantine treasury was empty. The empire was in such deep decline that it could not afford even basic defense expenses. The emperor could offer Orban only a modest salary, which fell far short of the engineer's ambitions. Rejected and disappointed, Orban went straight to Constantine's enemy, Sultan Mehmed II. Unlike the emperor, the young and ambitious sultan immediately recognized the engineer's potential. Mehmed was obsessed with the idea of taking Constantinople and was ready to pay any price for the technology that would allow him to crush the Theodosian walls. He welcomed Orban with open arms, showered him with gold, and gave him unlimited resources. Mehmed set Orban a clear task: create a cannon so powerful that it could destroy walls that had stood for 1,000 years. Given carte blanche, Orban set to work. He created a true masterpiece of destruction for his time, a gigantic bombard later called the Basilica. It was a weapon the world had never seen. Its length exceeded 8 meters, and it weighed tens of tons. The casting process for such a monster was incredibly complex and dangerous. Orban set up camp in Adrianople, where, under his direction, hundreds of workers prepared the mold and smelted the bronze. Any mistake, any crack or air bubble in the metal could lead to catastrophe at the first shot. It was a technological breakthrough that required a colossal expenditure of effort and resources. When the basilica was ready, a new, no less difficult task arose: delivering it to the walls of Constantinople. The distance was more than 200 kilometers. A special carriage was built to transport this monster, harnessed to dozens of oxen and hundreds of men. An entire team of engineers and workers moved ahead, leveling the road and building wooden bridges. Transporting the basilica took more than a month. The arrival of the cannon at the city walls shocked the defenders. They had never seen anything like it. The basilica was not just a cannon, it was a psychological weapon. Its barrel was so wide that a person could fit inside. It fired huge stone balls weighing more than half a ton. Each shot from this monster shook the ground. The first salvos showed what the new weapon could do. The basilica's balls opened breaches where no enemy had set foot for centuries. They didn't just damage the walls, they methodically ground them to powder. Ancient masonry designed to withstand catapult blows could not resist the kinetic energy of such projectiles. The defenders watched in horror as their impregnable stronghold crumbled before their eyes. Yet the super weapon had its drawbacks. The basilica was incredibly difficult to maintain. Reloading it took hours, it constantly overheated and had to be cooled. Moreover, after several weeks of the siege, the gun itself could not withstand the internal stress and cracked, becoming unusable. But it had accomplished its main task. Orban and his basilica marked the end of the age of stone castles and the beginning of the era of artillery. This cannon proved that no walls, however mighty, could guarantee safety anymore. Mehmed, having bet on technology, won. Byzantium's decline was predestined not only politically but technologically. This story of a brilliant engineer and his creation is a vivid example of how a single technology can change the course of history. Give this video a like if you also believe this was one of the greatest technological breakthroughs in military history. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next episodes on how technologies change the world. Do you want to know what happens when two eras collide? On April 6, 1453, Mehmed II's vast army approached the walls of Constantinople. It was a spectacle never seen before. Hundreds of thousands of warriors, thousands of tents stretching to the horizon, and a formidable fleet blockading the city from the sea. The siege began, and the ring around the ancient capital closed. Mehmed approached organizing the siege with methodical precision. He divided his army into sectors, each responsible for a specific section of wall. The elite Janissary regiments, his personal guard, were placed in the center, opposite the most vulnerable sections, such as the Gate of St. Romanus. The Sultan pitched his tent directly opposite the gates to personally oversee the battle and inspire his troops. The defenders, despite their small numbers, were full of resolve. Constantine the Maintine and his loyal ally, Giustiniani Longo, distributed their 7,000 warriors along the entire perimeter of the walls, which stretched for more than 20 kilometers. It was a desperate task. Each defender had several meters of wall to hold, while each of Constantine's soldiers faced dozens of Mehmed's men. A daily exhausting siege routine began. Each day at sunrise, the thunder of Ottoman artillery commenced. Orban's guns and dozens of other, smaller pieces methodically shelled the walls. They concentrated their fire on the weakest points, trying to open a breach. The roar, according to eyewitnesses, could be heard for many miles around. The city's residents and soldiers showed incredible endurance. Every night, as soon as the shelling subsided, they climbed onto the walls to repair the damage. Women, children, monks, everyone worked tirelessly. They filled the gaps with stones, logs, sacks of earth, and anything else at hand. This nighttime labor was as essential to the defense as the daytime combat. Seeing that cannons alone would not take the walls, Mehmed resorted to other methods. He ordered his engineers to dig mines beneath the walls. The idea was either to collapse a wall by placing explosives beneath it, or to tunnel through and burst into the city. The Ottomans were masters of this craft, and for the defenders, it was a new hidden threat. But the Byzantines and their Genoese allies did not sit idle. They had their own engineers, notably a Scotsman named John Grant. He organized an effective countermining campaign. By placing basins of water throughout the city, the defenders detected where the enemy was digging by the ripples on the surface. They then dug a counter tunnel and fought the Ottoman sappers in the pitch-black underground. Beyond cannons and mining, the Ottomans also launched direct assaults. Several times Mehmed hurled his troops at the walls, hoping to take the city by storm, But the defenders, led by Justiniani, repelled every attack. They fought with the desperation of the doomed, knowing there was nowhere to retreat. Genoese crossbowmen and Greek heavy infantry stood their ground to the death. At sea, the situation was also tense. The Ottoman fleet completely blockaded the Sea of Marmara, but could not enter the Golden Horn because of the massive chain. Several times Ottoman ships tried to break the chain, but the Byzantine fleet, though small, successfully repelled every attempt. The chain was the key to the safety of the city's northern side. Thus the weeks passed. The siege turned into a war of attrition. The defenders suffered from shortages of food and chronic sleep deprivation. The walls, once impregnable, slowly but surely turned to ruins under the hail of stone balls. Morale fell, but hope still flickered. Everyone waited for help from Europe, but it never came. Tension grew by the day. The walls were damaged but not broken. The chain held. What do you think the Ottomans did? How did they plan to overcome this seemingly unsolvable problem? In the next chapter, we will see how Mehmed II carried out one of the boldest and most ingenious military maneuvers in history. The blockade from the Sea of Marmara was effective, but the city's northern side, facing the Golden Horn, remained relatively calm. The sea walls there were lower and weaker than the land walls, yet the Byzantines felt secure. The entrance to the inlet was blocked by a gigantic iron chain stretching from the walls of Constantinople to the Genoese colony of Pera on the opposite shore. The remaining ships of the Byzantine and Allied fleets guarded this chain. Mehmed II understood perfectly that without control of the Golden Horn, the siege could drag on. His fleet was enormous, but useless as long as it could not attack the city's most vulnerable walls. The first attempts to break the chain by force or trickery failed. Byzantine and Genoese sailors defended their last line with desperation, burning and ramming Ottoman ships. The Sultan was furious, but this only spurred his inventive mind. The Sultan realized that if he could not sail into the inlet, he had to find another way, and he made a decision that still astonishes with its daring and scale. He decided to haul his fleet overland, skirting Genoese Pera, and launch it into the water inside the Golden Horn, behind the chain. To any reasonable person, this plan seemed utterly unworkable and insane. Thousands of laborers and engineers were mobilized to carry out the plan. In a single night, a route was laid across the hills of Galata. The forest was felled, and from the logs, a kind of wooden shipping canal, a portage, was built. These logs were liberally greased with fat and oil to reduce friction. It was a titanic engineering task completed in record time. Then the spectacle began, something the city's defenders could not have imagined even in their worst nightmares. Under cover of night, the Ottomans started dragging their ships along this greased path. Dozens of light and medium vessels, one after another, were hauled by teams of men and draft animals. To mask the noise and distract attention, Mehmed ordered his artillery to keep up a continuous, especially heavy bombardment of the land walls. On the morning of April 22nd, the defenders standing on the Golden Horn's walls could not believe their eyes. On the placid surface of the inlet, they had considered their quiet haven. Dozens of enemy ships bobbed in the water. This was not merely a military maneuver, it was a crushing psychological blow. The impregnable fortress suddenly proved vulnerable from the most unexpected side. The appearance of the Ottoman fleet in the Golden Horn radically changed the course of the siege. Now Mehmed could attack the city from two sides. The weak sea walls along the inlet were no longer safe. The Sultan immediately ordered a pontoon bridge built across the inlet to ferry troops and mount cannons on it to bombard the walls. The defenders were in despair. They made several desperate attempts to burn the Ottoman fleet in the inlet, but all failed. The Ottomans were ready for this and emplaced their guns on the shore, which blasted the Byzantine ships. The Byzantine fleet was trapped in its own harbor, now useless. This maneuver demonstrated not only Mehmed's genius as a strategist, but also his unbreakable will. He was ready to take any, even the most unthinkable step to achieve his goal. He did not play by the rules, he made his own. For him, the word impossible did not exist. Now the city was truly trapped. The land walls were cracking under cannon blows, and the sea walls were under threat of direct assault. The defenders lacked the manpower to effectively hold this new, suddenly open front as well. The siege ring tightened to the limit, and the air filled with the sense of an imminent denouement. ready to learn what happens when faith collides with reality? After the Ottoman fleet entered the Golden Horn, the siege entered its final, darkest phase. It had been nearly 2 months since the blockade began. The city was exhausted. Food and ammunition were scarce. But worst of all, hope was fading. The walls, once impregnable, were riddled with breaches the defenders no longer had time to repair. Panic grew in the city, stoked by ominous signs and ancient prophecies. People recalled the prediction that the empire would fall when an emperor named Constantine, son of Helena, sat on the throne. The current emperor was named Constantine, and his mother was Helena. This coincidence, once seen as a symbol of continuity, now looked like a death sentence. Several events dealt a final blow to morale. During one of the processions, the city's main icon, the Haudagatria, was carried out of Hagia Sophia, and during the procession it fell from its platform. This was taken as a terrible omen. A few days later, for several nights in a row, a strange glow was seen around the dome of Hagia Sophia. Some saw in it divine fire leaving the city, others a sign of imminent victory. Even nature seemed to be against the besieged. In late May, a lunar eclipse occurred, which was also interpreted in the darkest light. All these signs, layered onto constant bombardment and hunger, created an apocalyptic atmosphere. People believed less in the strength of the walls and more in the inevitability of fate. Mehmed II, being not only a warrior but a subtle psychologist, sensed this. He knew the city was at the limit. He decided to make one last offer to avoid a bloody assault that would cost him thousands of soldiers. The Sultan sent envoys to Constantine the Virus with an offer of surrender. The terms were surprisingly generous. Mehmed offered the emperor and all residents the chance to leave the city with their property. He guaranteed them safe passage and even offered Constantine possession of one of the Aegean islands. The Sultan wanted the city, but he would have preferred to have it intact rather than ruined in a storming. Constantine faced an unbearable choice. He could save his life and the lives of thousands simply by surrendering the city. He was a ruler responsible for his people, but he was also the last Roman emperor, heir to a 1,000-year tradition. For him, surrendering the city without a fight was tantamount to betraying the entire history he embodied. The emperor's response was full of dignity and tragedy. He declared that he was ready to give the Sultan all his personal property, but not the city. He said he had no right to surrender what belonged to God and his people. He and his men were ready to die, but not to submit. This was the answer of a warrior, not a politician, and it meant that the assault was inevitable. Mehmed received the answer. He understood that the city would have to be taken by force. He ordered preparations for a general, final assault. He promised his troops 3 days to pillage the city. An ancient and brutal tradition meant to motivate the soldiers for one last, desperate push. In the city, they also understood the end was near. On the night before the assault, Constantine ordered a final service held in the Hagia Sophia. In the cathedral that had long symbolized the rift between Orthodox and Catholics, that night everyone prayed together. Greeks, Genoese, Venetians, all who remained to defend the city, united in the face of common doom. It was a piercing scene of unity so lacking in Byzantium in life. The emperor walked through the cathedral asking everyone's forgiveness and took communion with his warriors. After the service, he mounted his horse and rode to the walls to meet his fate. He knew he would not survive the night. What do you think? Did the emperor truly have a choice in that situation? The air was electrified. Both sides prepared for the decisive moment. But how exactly did Mehmed plan this final act? In the next chapter, we will see how the assault began, the one that would decide the fate of the world. On the night of May 29, 1453, Constantinople did not sleep. It was the last night of the Byzantine Empire's existence. In the Ottoman camp, feverish excitement reigned. Tens of thousands of warriors prepared for the assault. Sultan Mehmed II rode among his troops, promising them unimaginable riches and eternal glory. He proclaimed that the city would be theirs for 3 days. It was a powerful incentive for an army worn out by a long siege. Fires burned throughout the Ottoman camp, lighting up the night sky. The sounds of preparation, the clatter of weapons, the neighing of horses, the shouts of commanders were heard on the city walls. By the Sultan's order, the artillery maintained continuous fire to wear down the defenders and deny them even a minute of rest before the decisive attack. It was a psychological strike meant to break the will to resist even before the battle began. Inside the city, the atmosphere was entirely different, a mix of despair, repentance, and grim resolve. After the final service in Hagia Sophia, Emperor Constantine V returned to the walls. He personally inspected the posts, encouraging his warriors. He knew this was his last night, and he wanted to meet it as an emperor should, beside his soldiers, defending his city. The defenders, exhausted by 2 months of siege, took their positions. They were desperately few. Giustiniani Longo, the Genoese hero, commanded the defense at the most dangerous sector, the area of the Gate of St. Romanus, where the walls had been most heavily damaged by artillery. This was exactly where Mehmed planned to deliver his main blow. Services continued in cathedrals and churches that had not ceased their work. Priests and monks prayed for a miracle, for divine intervention that alone could save the city. Ordinary residents hid in their homes or sought refuge in the strongest churches, hoping the sacred walls would protect them. The silence inside the city was almost as deafening as the roar of the guns outside. At 1 o'clock in the morning, signals of trumpets and the beating of drums swept through the Ottoman camp. It was the sign to begin the assault. Mehmed II had devised a cunning plan aimed at exhausting the defenders. He chose to throw his troops into battle in waves. Each wave would weaken the defense so that the elite units would strike an already spent enemy. The first to attack were the Bashi Bazouks, irregular units recruited from the empire's various peoples. Poorly armed but numerous and hungry for plunder, they were driven forward. Their task was not to break the defense, but to tire the defenders and take the brunt of the first, most powerful counterblows. They were herded into battle under threat from blocking detachments. The defenders met the first wave with a hail of arrows, stones, and Greek fire. They fought with the fury of desperation, toppling scaling ladders and beating back assault after assault. Narrow breaches in the walls turned into arenas of ferocious hand-to-hand combat. The battle raged in the darkness, lit only by muzzle flashes and fire. As dawn began to tint the sky and the defenders were utterly exhausted by 2 assault waves, Mehmed II gave the crucial order. The last and decisive force, the Janissaries, went into battle. They were the elite of the Ottoman army, the Sultan's personal guard, fanatically devoted to him. They advanced in utter silence to the thunder of drums, producing a chilling psychological effect. The Janissaries did not attack as a chaotic mob, but in tight columns, ignoring losses. They pressed toward the main breach at the Gate of St. Romanus, where the emperor and Giustiniani were still fighting. The fiercest phase of the battle began. The defenders, mustering their last strength, grappled with the Sultan's finest warriors. The balance hung by a hair. At this critical moment, an event occurred that decided the outcome not only of the battle, but of the empire's fate. Giovanni Giustiniani Longo, the Genoese commander who was the soul of the defense, suffered a serious wound. A fragment or bullet pierced his armor. Seeing their fallen leader, his men carried him from the field to save his life. For the remaining defenders, this became the signal of catastrophe. Giustiniani's departure from the field, even if caused by a wound, was taken by many as flight. The Genoese soldiers, deprived of their commander, wavered. Their formation broke, and a gap opened in the defense. Seeing this, Constantine V rushed to them, trying to stop the panic and restore order. But it was already too late. At that very moment, the Janissaries, sensing weakness, made a desperate surge. They flooded through the breach, and no force could stop them now. Simultaneously, another fateful event occurred. A small Ottoman detachment discovered a little postern in the northern section of the walls, known as the Kirkaporta. For some reason, either negligence or a fatal accident, it had been left unlocked. Through this postern, Ottoman soldiers slipped into the city and quickly seized the nearest tower. They hoisted the Ottoman banner upon it. When the defenders on the wall saw the enemy flag already waving in their rear, inside the city, panic became universal. The defense collapsed completely. Resistance became pointless. Mehmed's soldiers burst into the city from several directions at once. Through the main breach, through the Kirkaporta, and by scaling the walls where resistance had ceased. Organized defense dissolved into chaotic, scattered street fights. For the city, this was the end. As Ottoman troops poured into the city, Organized resistance virtually ceased at once. Chaos began. Soldiers promised 3 days of plunder by the Sultan scattered through the streets. They were motivated not only by greed, but by exhaustion after the long, grueling siege. For them, this was the reward for their toil and losses. The city's inhabitants sought salvation in panic. Many fled toward the Golden Horn's harbor, hoping to find a place on departing Genoese and Venetian ships. A few vessels did manage to break the blockade and reach the open sea, carrying refugees and news of the city's fall, but most had nowhere to run. Huge crowds surged toward the city's greatest shrine, Hagia Sophia. They believed in the ancient prophecy that when the enemies entered the city and reached Constantine's column, an angel with a sword would appear and drive them out. They hoped for a miracle, locking themselves behind the cathedral's massive bronze doors. Thousands of men, women, and elderly prayed for salvation. But no miracle occurred. The cathedral doors were broken down. Soldiers burst inside, seeking not only gold and silver church treasures, but also people to take captive. The cathedral that for centuries had been the center of the Orthodox world became a place of tragedy. This scene became one of the darkest symbols of the city's fall. Sultan Mehmed II entered the city only in the afternoon, after the main wave of chaos had subsided. He rode along the main street, the Mese, surrounded by his guard. He stood at the height of his triumph. The 21-year-old ruler had achieved what dozens of his predecessors could not. He had conquered a city considered impregnable. According to tradition, he went straight to Hagia Sophia. Entering the cathedral, he was struck by its grandeur and beauty. He ordered any destruction of the building to cease immediately. He dismounted and, in a sign of humility, took a handful of earth and sprinkled it on his turban. He proclaimed that from then on, this great temple would be converted into the chief mosque of his new capital. The Sultan ordered that Emperor Constantine's body be found. He wanted to be sure of his opponent's death. According to one version, the body was discovered in a heap of fallen warriors near the gate of St. Romanus. It could be identified only by the special imperial boots embroidered with double-headed eagles. Mehmed treated his enemy's body with respect, acknowledging his valor. The fall of Constantinople is not just a date in a history textbook. It is the event commonly regarded as the formal point that ended the Middle Ages and began the modern era. Although historical epochs do not change in a single day, May 29, 1453 became a powerful catalyst for those changes. The reasons for this day's importance are manifold and profound. First, it was the final collapse of the political structure inherited from antiquity. The Byzantine Empire was the Eastern Roman Empire. It preserved the titles, traditions, and state system of ancient Rome for 1,000 years after the fall of Rome itself. With the death of Constantine V and the capture of his capital, this direct line of continuity was severed forever. The ancient world finally receded into the past. Second, the city's fall altered the geopolitical balance of power. The Ottoman Empire, having taken control of a strategically crucial city, became the dominant force in the Eastern Mediterranean. It firmly established itself in Europe, and for the next several centuries, the Ottoman threat became the chief factor in European politics. Europe could no longer ignore this new, powerful, and aggressive state on its doorstep. Third, the event had colossal economic consequences. Constantinople was a crossroads of great trade routes, including the Silk Road. Now that this hub was controlled by the Ottomans, who imposed high duties, trade with the East became extremely unprofitable for Europeans. This forced Western nations, primarily Portugal and Spain, to seek alternative sea routes to Asia. This economic necessity became the main impetus for the Age of Discovery. In less than 40 years after the fall of Constantinople, Christopher Columbus, seeking a westward route to India, would discover America, and Vasco da Gama would round Africa. Thus, the fall of one city led to the discovery of entire continents and the establishment of global sea links. Fourth, the cultural impact cannot be underestimated. Thousands of Greek scholars, philosophers, artists, and scribes, fleeing the dying city, poured into Europe, mostly Italy. They brought with them not only their belongings, but a priceless cargo, ancient manuscripts, knowledge of the Greek language, and the Hellenistic tradition. This influx of knowledge and ideas became one of the most important catalysts of the Renaissance. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 is far more than the capture of a city. It is a tragic and majestic story of the collision of two worlds, two eras, and two great leaders. It is the tale of how thousand-year-old walls, symbols of immovability, proved powerless before new technology and unbending human will. The story of this siege is an eternal reminder that nothing in history is permanent. The mightiest empires can fall, and the most impregnable walls can collapse. It is a lesson in how technology, faith, and personal courage intertwine into a single knot that defines civilization's turning points. What other great battles or turning points in history would you like us to cover in future episodes? Perhaps the Battle of Hastings or the Fall of Rome? Share your ideas in the comments. And of course, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new gripping stories from the past.